The Book of Enoch. Where did it come from? Was it once part of the Bible and then removed from the Bible? What does it speak about? Does it talk about ancient astronauts, aliens, angels, demons, giants? What is contained within the pages of this fascinating manuscript? Hi, my name is Pastor Tim Gregory, and I want to invite you to go on a journey with me as we dig into this fascinating book and uncover the mysteries it contains. And so I want to start off just looking at its namesake. It is called the Book of Enoch, and the man Enoch is a biblical character. And the Bible speaks of Enoch. It says this in the book of Genesis. It says that Enoch lived 365 years, walking in close friendship with God. Then one day, he disappeared because God took him. What a fascinating picture there. Enoch's walking with God and he lives all these years, and all of a sudden God just takes him. The Bible goes on in the New Testament and speaks of it as well. In Hebrews 11:5 it says, "It was by faith that Enoch was taken up to heaven without dying." He disappeared because God took him. For before he was taken up, he was known as a person who pleased God. So the Book of Enoch is named after Enoch, the biblical character. And so the oldest pieces of this manuscript were found in Qumran amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're written in Aramaic. They date back to about 200 years before the time of Christ. But they were severely fragmented, and the Book of Enoch in its entirety only exists in the Ethiopic language today. In that Book of Enoch, it's made up of several different smaller books. The most fascinating of these books is the first one, the Book of Watchers. And this one really captures the imagination of many people. Through the Book of Watchers, you can also see pictures from the Old Testament and New Testament also contained within there. And so the Book of Watchers, it speaks of a heavenly rebellion of a group of angelic beings called Watchers. The Bible also speaks of the same rebellion. It chronicles the Watchers' interaction with mankind and how they worked to multiply sin upon the earth. It talks about their punishment for this rebellion, and their punishment is also contained within the pages of the New Testament. The second book is called the Parable of Enoch. It has many parallels to the book of Revelation and speaks of the Lord as the Son of Man. This section highlights the coming judgment on the forces of evil and the great and severe punishment that shall be dealt out to them. The third section is the book of heavenly luminaries, also known as astronomical Enoch amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. It speaks of the gates of heaven, the course of the sun and moon, times and seasons, and the coming judgment. The fourth is the dream vision of Enoch. In this book, Enoch sees the history of Israel from Adam and Eve to the establishment of the Messianic kingdom. The human figures are interestingly portrayed allegorically by means of various animals, which makes it very interesting to read. The fifth is the Apocalypse of Enoch. In this section, Enoch addresses his son Methuselah, speaking of a coming divine judgment upon the earth, which he divides into 10 weeks. And the last section is the birth of Noah. This section speaks of the birth of Noah, Enoch's great-grandson, and the supernatural signs that surrounded his birth. So the Book of Enoch, although it's very mysterious and strange to people today, that would not have been the case when Jesus walked the earth. It would have been well known. It would have helped the people make sense of the world around them. It was not so much as a mystery as it is today. And the truth is, it wasn't to early church fathers either. And so as we look at some of the New Testament writings, we can see the authors of the New Testament were aware of this book and even referenced it. And so Jude directly references the Book of Enoch. when he says this. It was also about these that Enoch, in the seventh generation from Adam, prophesied, saying, See, the Lord is coming with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment on all and to convict everyone of all the deeds of ungodliness that they have committed in such an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things that ungodly sinners have spoken against him. So it's fascinating. Jude directly quotes from it. Now, Peter doesn't directly reference, he doesn't say the Book of Enoch says or anything like that, but he indirectly references it, and he says this: For if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of deepest darkness to be kept until the judgment. Well, this is an indirect reference to the Book of Enoch. And so just from these two references, we can see the Book of Enoch held a level of credibility with first century Jews. And it's also interesting, as we think about the credibility of this book, to think of some of the words of Jesus. There is a time when Jesus is questioned about marriage. And he says this is found in Mark 12:25. He says, For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. And so the religious leaders come, they're questioning him about marriage and what happens after death. And so he makes this statement about how they're going to be like the angels in heaven. They're not going to marry and they're not going to be given in marriage. And so it's interesting that this information is not found in the Old Testament within the scriptures, but it does parallel information found in the Book of Enoch. And so in the Book of Enoch, in the section of the Watchers, it says this: But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you. For as for spiritual ones of the heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. And so we see this parallel where Jesus speaks about the angels of heaven, how they're not given in marriage. And in the Book of Enoch, it also speaks about how the angels were not supposed to marry. And of course, in the Book of Watchers, we're going to see that the Watchers rebel against this and take wives from mortal women to have affairs with. And so the writers of the New Testament would have been very much aware of the Book of Enoch, and it would have influenced how they understood the world they lived in. The same is true with many of the early church fathers from the 2nd and 3rd century. Many of them understood the Book of Enoch. And Justin Martyr wrote this. He said, God, when he had made the whole world and subject things earthly to man and arranged the heavenly elements for the increase of fruit and rotation of the seasons, and appointed this divine law for these things also, he evidently made for man, committed to the care of men, and all things under heaven to angels, whom he appointed over them. But the angels transgressed this appointment, and were captivated by love of women, and begot children, who are those that are called demons. And besides, they afterwards subdued the human race to themselves. It's fascinating. Justin writes about these same things we see in the Book of Watchers and the Book of Giants. And so we see how this literature greatly impacted their understanding of the world. But there's always this idea, was the Book of Enoch part of the Bible? Was it removed from the Bible? Well, the truth is, even though it's part of the Ethiopian Bible, it was never part of the original Bible, neither the Old or the New Testament. Our oldest copies of the Bible date back to about the 4th century. Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Sinaiticus, and Codex Vaticanus. And so these are all from the 4th century. The Ethiopian Bible dates about the 6th, 7th century. And so we can see the oldest copies of the Bible never had it in it. But that does not take away from its significance as a piece of literature that helps us to understand the world we live in, how it works, and even how the supernatural realm interacts with the physical realm today. And so we're going to continue on this journey. I'm going to stop here, but the next video session, we're going to really dig into that first section of the Book of Enoch, which is the Book of Watchers. As I said, it is the most fascinating of all the sections. I hope you'll join us. Hope this blessed you. If it did, be sure to like it and share it so it can bless others.